Good morning and welcome to this Easter Sunday edition of Sport SA Daily Diary, where we will be chatting to SuperSport presenter, MC and Conquer Group Director, Xola Ntshinga. Morning, Xola. How are you, mate? Happy Easter. How's it going today?
Yeah, happy Easter, Adam. It's been a weird couple of weeks, surviving it. Had an Easter egg hunt with the kids. Miniature one, obviously, because you can't buy the fancy Easter eggs. So, trying to keep them busy. A lot of school stuff. I've turned into a part-time teacher as well. But I suppose it hopefully is all going to be worth it. Stay inside, stay safe. That has to be, we have to be single-minded about it.
Yeah, for sure. And they must be loving having dad at home 24 hours a day.
Yeah, I don't know if if the opposite is true, but so far so good. They do have moments where they can get on dad's nerves. Obviously, I've got an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old, so no rest for the wicked. But if there is a positive, and I think there actually are positives from this whole coronavirus scare, is I think it's actually forced us to connect in very different and much more meaningful ways. I hope that when this is all done, we actually enter into an age of altruism, as it were, that we start thinking about the really important things in life, in the way in which we relate to each other, and also understanding our place on the planet, in the biosphere. The world isn't built for us. We just happen to be passengers on the spaceship. And I think if it leads us to being more conscientious and responsible about our planet and how we think about the impact of what we do, then I think we hopefully will end up in a better place. I mean, that's the positive spin to what seems to be a dire situation. But I think you have to look ahead, and we've got to continue.
Yeah. And I think it's also a positive impact on how we actually need to engage with each other and respect each other and, be there for each other, because it's a difficult time for a lot of people, and especially in our industry, in the sporting industry, the photographers are losing money. Everybody is essentially losing money. So it's really about how we're going to be there for each other at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've stopped working. I live the life of a freelancer. So, when there are no sporting events, when there are no MC gigs, when people aren't hosting events, then, all I can do is sit at home and hope that some of my past work is worth something. So it really is a limbo for the entire industry, sports industry, because until sports comes back, there's just absolutely nothing anyone can do.
Yeah. And Xola, you've been a big part of the sports industry in South Africa for a long time. When you were growing up as a youngster, where was your sort of thoughts and direction of where you wanted to go? Did you have aspirations of playing professionally in any sport? Were you a bit like me, where you loved to play everything, you were good at everything, but you were never going to make that level, so you had to find a way into sport? What was Xola sort of 30 years ago? Where was he?
Lots skinnier, for one. But I never saw myself as becoming a professional anything in sport. There were some sporting codes that I really took to. I really enjoyed participating in. I suppose at school level was fairly decent at them, nothing absolutely spectacular. The one sport that I obviously carried over past school would have to be rugby. I mean, I played club rugby after high school, and there wasn't really the opportunity, I think, to potentially become professional, though I did manage to sneak into a couple of Northern Transvaal trials. Back then it was still Northern Transvaal. And I was based in Pretoria. It made absolute sense. I loved playing. My old man used to play. His brothers used to play. And if there was ever a sport that I thought, I'd love to be a professional, is rugby. At school, I also participated quite a lot in athletics, short distance. You can tell by my build, of course. I was very quick.
Quick.
No, I wasn't very quick. But long jump, triple jump, that sort of thing, I really enjoyed. It just came very, very naturally to me. The rhythm of triple jump, I think, is something that gets a lot of people sort of caught up in thinking about the hop, skip, and jump. But first time someone showed it to me, I immediately knew that I'm going to be okay at this. But besides sport, I spent most of my time at school in the choir, singing. Played musical instruments before I moved to my final school. I played a bit of classical guitar. I played a little bit of piano. I did singing. I went through the grades with UNISA. I got up to grade 6. I did music theory up to about grade 6, I think, as well. Piano only until about grade 3. I just never really took to practicing as much as I should have. Classical guitar I really enjoyed, but it is a very technical instrument, and once you stop playing it, you lose it. So unfortunately, the sport sort of took over and the music sort of died down. But I think I was probably more keen on becoming a musician than I was a sports person.
You spent a bit of time at Drakensberg Boys Choir?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where it started. My parents, I think it says something. They got me into boarding school when I was 9 years old, turning 10. I was quite young to be in boarding school. But, after you adjust to being away from home, it takes a couple of months. And then I would not have wanted to be anywhere else. I really enjoyed my time. I was there for 5 years. Got to sing in some amazing venues with some amazing choirs, orchestras, really around the country. And we also got to travel to quite a few places around the world as well. And that was a superb experience. I think things have changed, times have changed. The school was just absolutely wonderful. It was wild. We were in the mountains. We would go out on horseback and go camping for 2 or 3 nights in the middle of the mountains on weekends or whatever. And I think whether it was as safe then as it is as what we thought, I don't know. Probably not. We probably just were not as wary of the dangers. So unfortunately, a lot of the kids at the school can't do all of those activities, have that amount of freedom. But it was wonderful for me. I really, really loved my time in the Berg. And, for my sins, I've got 2 girls. So, kind of the end of my my association with the school, unfortunately. But I do keep an eye out. I watch them whenever they perform, and if they release any new stuff, I'll always watch and have a listen and sing along.
So you still have a love for music. Are you going to be watching the Bocelli concert this evening?
Well, I mean, there's not too much else to do, so we might have. I think my daughters will probably get absolutely sick of me, so I might have to do that upstairs. But yeah, no, I will, and I do, and I've got my favorite go-to sort of pieces of music and musicians and singers, and it all is very mood dependent. So, for instance, yesterday I was going through Mozart's Requiem and trying to remember every chorus as we were a powerful piece of music, and it just always seems to set my mind right for a task, So I use music all the time.
Do you think, and I mean, it's a bit of a strange question, but do you think there's a relationship between music and sport in terms of being able to use the flow of music in how people move in sport, whether it be rugby or soccer or, obviously you got your gymnastics and stuff, they actually use music, but do you think if somebody has got good rhythm, they would be good at sport?
I do think there's a correlation between movement, human movement, rhythm, music, and musicality. I don't think it's as pronounced, though. There are other areas where I do see those 2 areas, music and sport, really coming together, and that's usually what happens in terms of preparation. The level of professionalism that I see with musicians and dedication is really tantamount to what I see with professional sports persons. If you're going to become a top sports star in any field, you have to give of yourself in terms of time, Talent is just not enough. It's just not going to cut it. So in order to take it to the next level, you almost have to be single-minded, really dog-minded in your approach. And I have been fortunate enough to see musicians at work and elite sports people at work, and the similarities are uncanny. And I also think that there's a mental approach that I say these people because they really are a small, minuscule percentage of the total population in being able to focus on a task and improve their craft, as it were. So I think that's probably the bigger correlation. In rugby, particularly, I do think there's a little bit more in terms of one's ability to move and dance and have rhythm. And you see it mostly in the sevens field. You really do. The ability to sidestep, the ability to understand how far you're going to be able to move your body from the left to the right. And there really is a rhythm to a double step or a goose step. And if you've got fast feet and you're very steady and sure and have a strong core, these things become easy. So there is definitely. And I think that I could almost cry when I think about the fact that PT is no longer a part of the syllabus, because I think a lot of these, skills develop from that age and from being able to intermarry all of these things that you learn at that age.
Yeah, to be honest, PT was the only A that I got at school. Everything else I sucked. Xola, you started in media very young. You started with SABC presenting a sports show. Then you moved on to radio with 702, Midnight Shift, which must have been great fun, Early Breakfast, then onto the sports, and then John Robbie. You must have learned a lot during those early years, because you really became known as the face of rugby in South Africa after that.
Well, it was, so again, you speak about these correlations. I think this is probably part of it. The ability to stand up in front of a crowd and sing means that you almost need not care what the people think. It's not necessarily true, but you have to sort of trust in your ability to portray whatever it is in front of a live audience or in front of an audience. So I think that was a massive strength that I learned from being in the choir. I really do. Every time I say it, people always have a chuckle, but it's important to be able to, deportation, how you address a crowd, how you address people is unbelievably important. And then, of course, the people that I came across in the sporting and the broadcast world, John Robbie, being a rugby maniac and a former professional British and Irish Lions player. Obviously, we had a lot of, I think, interest when it came to me walking into the studio with a bulletin in hand and they'd say, "Oh, I can't believe you're not going to report on the Lions." And that would sort of start up a little bit of banter. And I kind of, it happened very incidentally, by the way. I was just doing normal talk show stuff. And one day, I can't remember what Katie Katapotis, who was the news editor then, she tasked me with something, finding out some information or getting hold of somebody's number, or there was a rugby story brewing in the newsroom, and I sort of stepped in and said, "Oh, no, I can help you with that." And that gave her a second look, and she said, "Don't you want to move across to news and do sport for us?" And I thought, well, rugby is definitely a second love, probably a lot more than politics. And that made it very, very easy. The other person that I learned from in radio terms, Docky Dockrat, who I'd taken over from, he had been on John Robbie's show doing the sport before I came along. And in, I suppose, the biggest irony, he got headhunted. He got approached by SuperSport, and he went off to head up the Blitz channel, which was then called SuperSport Update. And then he had no reporters. So he called me and said, "Look, I need some reporters. Would you be keen to come along?" And I did. And I sort of worked the two for probably a year or two. And then eventually dropped the one job and sort of went full hog into my SuperSport gig. But there's so many people that you learn from. And then once I got into rugby, automatically you're surrounded by people that you will learn from. The first person I think I had a really deep chat about broadcast where this could go, how long it's going to take you, and the patience required. It's probably with Hugh Bladen. And there is no one better to get that type of advice from than Uncle Hugh. And then eventually, obviously, you start working with all these former rugby players. Next thing you know, you're having real in-depth conversations or debates or bashing heads with somebody like Nick Mullet saying, no, but that should have been a penalty. No, this is why I think, which also forces you to constantly think about the game. So I can't take any credit for my knowledge of rugby. I really take any knowledge that I've been able to portray, if any, from the people that I was fortunate to be surrounded by.
But I mean, during those years where you were on SuperSport and you were the host of the show with the Nasporters and etc., did you have to do a lot of behind the scenes homework to up your knowledge on the game? What's happening? Who's playing? Who's playing well? Who's playing? Who's not playing well? And again, feed off those that had the previous knowledge of the game.
Yeah, no, you cannot go into any broadcast scenario without homework. And I had a rule of thumb. Everybody works very differently. I suppose, use the methodology that works for you best. For me, I had a thing. If I was going to be on air for an hour, I needed to put in 2 hours of prep for each hour of television. And it's very difficult to put in prep for rugby because it entails watching games. And watching games is incredibly time consuming. So it would happen sometimes that I'm driving into studio to do afternoon Super Rugby matches. So I'm missing the last 2 morning Super Rugby games. At some stage, before coming back to the studio on Sunday morning, I would have to, watch those. And towards the end of my tenure at SuperSport, I had a Sunday morning show, which went on air at 9. So I get back home at 11 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night or whatever it is, and play the games that I'd missed just in case something really important happened. So it took a lot of time. Probably cost me my marriage because it's very difficult to explain to someone that no, I have to watch this, right? I have to watch these games. They're really important. And as you know, you could have in a Super Rugby weekend 7 matches played. There isn't really enough time. So to be truly honest, you can't get through it all, but you have to put in as much time as possible.
And you can't just watch the highlights because, again, rugby specifically, there's so much more to the game than just scoring the tries or the penalties or the dodgy tackles. There's the move on the ball, off the ball. I mean, it is a full 80-minute game, and you kind of have to watch that 80-minute game to get the gist of it.
Exactly. I mean, the thing that I think I appreciate, maybe not enjoy as much, but I appreciate the most about rugby is that the momentum of a game can shift on a single tackle, a single drop ball, a single kick that went directly into touch. So it might not necessarily be the 3 points, it might not be the drop goal or the try. It could be just a key moment, a referee's call. And if you miss that, then you've actually missed the gist of the game. And the problem is, over 80 minutes, this can happen multiple times. So it's much more preferable to be able to watch an entire game. I mean, cricket is exactly the same. It could be just one boundary out of 50 on the day, but that one boundary will be the 4 that counts.
Yeah. And Xola, tell us, did you support a team specifically? And if so, how did you find it having to be diplomatic during matches? And so if you're an ardent Lions or Northern Transvaal fan, it would be easy to just, slip out and say everything good about Northern Transvaal.
Go the Lions, or whatever it is,
It's quite difficult for a commentator, a presenter, anything, to actually be diplomatic and be neutral.
Sure. Well, I think that there are 2 ways of doing it, and I gave it a lot of thought before I started fully in rugby. Fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know. There are some people who wear their hearts on their sleeve. They'll blatantly say, no, I am biased. I am a Bulls supporter. I am a Stormers supporter. I do want them to win.
Yeah.
And I do think that's actually commendable. And I do think it's got a place in broadcast, though the world of broadcast is changing and changing very fast. I opted to not. I opted to just remain neutral on screen. And every time I'd run into people who would say, "Oh, who do you support?" I'd say the Springboks, which is a bit of a cop out because everyone the Springboks. Or I would say the Border Bulldogs because I'm from Umtata, which I suppose no one could give you a comeback on, but you're not really going to be supporting them in winning the Currie Cup or Super Rugby. But this is the first time, actually, I think I'm going to mention anything that's going to be broadcast anywhere who I do actually support. Can you guess?
I'm hoping it's the Lions.
And what I like about this is you've known me for years.
Yeah,
right?
And I wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah, it was the Sharks.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, always been the Sharks.
I think maybe we should keep this conversation.
Yeah, it's been good. And look, there's a very real reason, which I actually shared with Ian McIntosh a couple of years ago. And the reason is, when I was at school in the Berg in the 90s, Natal was doing incredibly well in the Currie Cup. They went through that patch where McIntosh's men just, managed to win. I think they won 4 Currie Cups in 6 years. Somebody's going to definitely correct me. But they did incredibly well. And they used to go and do their pre-season in the Berg. So while we were at school, the bus would rock up and all these big burly men would stand up and they'd sort of point out Gabos, Van der Westhuizen, or Jeremy Thompson, or Teichmann, or Sean Sowerby was still a youngster then. And I mean, as a 10, 12-year-old boy, these are your heroes coming to your school as part of their pre-season. So I was just sold. I was living in Natal. These guys used to come around to our school once a year. If anything, I was going to be a banana boy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I must commend you for keeping that the way you have. And a friend of mine, Rory Stain, once told me a story about Madiba, and Rory had a conversation very late into Madiba's tenure as president and said, "Do you believe in God?" And Madiba wasn't able to give him a proper answer because Madiba was the father of the nation. He had to, be supportive of Jewish and Hindu and everybody. So, I mean, not that it's directly the same, but you've certainly hidden that well. So well done.
Yeah, well, now the cat's out of the bag. So I suppose I'll have a lot of unfollows and down thumbs on this little chat. But it's always been since the 90s. And it's been a couple of years of torture, hey? It's been a couple of years of torture, but what a pity this season had to be cut short.
Yeah, they're on the way out. Xola, you've obviously had a very long career, an amazing career, lots of ups and lots of downs. Favorite moment that you've had in sports so far in your career?
2 immediately come to mind. And the first was because it was just such a surreal experience. Because I got appointed, or rather moved into rugby full time from doing blitz and reporting general sport in 2007. And that was the first year I went on tour with the Springboks. And that was the year that they won it in France with Jake White. So just that entire period from the first test match that they played, and the first test they played, I think, was in Bloemfontein against the English, who played them in a 3-test series as part of sort of the World Cup prep. I suppose they were on tour. So from that moment, right the way through, we went to Tri-Nations with a watered-down third-string team that got heavily criticized and lost in Christchurch to the All Blacks, but they still managed to do phenomenally well. And just to be part of that, the traveling troupe, as it were, meeting the journos on the road, speaking to the players and Jake, and sort of seeing this World Cup team come together the whole way through in France until they won the final. And I was sitting on the field, literally on the field behind the advertising boards, because somebody had messed up our accreditation. They thought we were photographers, not that we were there to do interviews post-match. So we were literally on the grass. That moment will always stay with me. And then the other would be the fact that I actually managed to be in Japan. I sat in the audience. I wasn't working, but it was my kids going up and down and trying to poke me in my back while I'm chatting to you. Yeah. But yeah, just to be a fan, to sit in the stands and to watch the Springboks as a fan. Well, I did do some work while I was there, but no massive responsibility of bringing this breaking news or this message live on television back home. To just be a fan. Those two moments will always stick out in my mind. I mean, the Japan one is obviously very recent, but also knowing what it means that we lost the first match against the All Blacks and to come out guns blazing in that final. I'll never forget that. There were so many others, but it'll have to be a short list. There was also the Tri-Nations win in Hamilton with Peter de Villiers' squad, where Francis Steyn kicked those two monster 60-meter penalties. And we won in New Zealand and won the Tri-Nations in New Zealand. And I couldn't do my interviews. I was waving the microphone around like this, the players' faces. I was excited. But yeah, sure. I know they're more, but these are the ones that immediately spring to mind.
Oh, certainly good moments. Xola, with all the good, obviously there's always some difficult, and I can see a smile there. I'm going to harp on it, and I'm just going to ask one simple question. The Nick Mallet, Ashwin Willemse situation, are you comfortable sharing your view, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's what makes it tricky is it's always better to hear it from the horse's mouth. It's always better to hear it from Nick or from Ashwin, because they also each have their own opinion as to what transpired. I was a passenger, not on the day that the incident took place, but I was a passenger for the preceding, I think 6 years maybe they might have worked together, or we might have worked together as a team in the studio. That's a guesstimate. So I got to experience the two guys over a very long period of time. Oddly enough, and this happens very, I think, often with people, is I get on quite well with Ashwin and I get on swimmingly with Nick. So there was obviously tension and people would always comment about it, that sure, these guys look as though they're going to come to blows. And yeah, there was, but I don't think it was as nasty and as malicious as perhaps it came across. I think, to be honest, and this is just a theory, it's just a view, it's just a thought, is you've got two very strong-willed individuals, two very strong personalities, who are probably a lot more similar to each other than they think they are, stuck in the same environment. They're very similar. They are insanely similar. And I saw it when it came down to giving an opinion on a player in particular. So here's something that wouldn't necessarily go on air all that much, because you almost have a bit of a responsibility to not highlight individual players, or not to do it very often. It's more important to speak about the team, to speak about the game, to speak about patterns of play, whatever it is, strategy, whatever it is. But the moment you highlight a player, then you shine a spotlight on that individual, which I don't think a lot of players cope with incredibly well.
Yeah.
But whenever behind the scenes the guys would sort of put, I think he's really good and he should be starting for the Springboks or for the Lions or for the Sharks or for whatever it is, I saw them do very similar things. I saw them react in a very similar way. So I think that was probably part of the problem. You got two guys who are very similar, very strong-willed, and neither of them is going to back down very easily, especially on a rugby opinion. So you could have tested them on other issues, excuse me, but it wouldn't have meant as much as their rugby opinion. And yeah, Motsiti Mohono was in studio the day that happened. I was away. It was my daughter again. I'm going to shoo them away.
No.
So she was in studio, and I was sitting at home watching at the time, and she used the word unfortunate, and I really do think that's the best word you could use is unfortunate. It was a really unfortunate situation or event that occurred. I do think that the choice of words and the outburst as well by Ashwin, given the South African situation, immediately escalated things to a whole different level. And the moment I watched that occur, I had an inkling. I had an inkling that it was going to be bigger than just the moment. And I had an inkling that it was going to ultimately influence or affect all of us who work in that studio. And I think it did to a very large degree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm moving my phone only because I just need to make sure it's on the charger there.
No. That's a very diplomatic answer, and I'm not going to delve into it any further. Xola, what does the future hold for you? You've obviously left SuperSport now. Where and what is Xola going to be?
After the lockdown, I have absolutely no idea. I'm scratching my head because I was immediately sort of pulled into the eventing space. Myself and my partner, Justin Wolford, have a small company called Conquer. And we hosted the Elite Sports Summit in Cape Town every year. Going great guns. It was a wonderful event, and it is a wonderful event. 300 odd coaches in the room, listening to some of the best sports minds from around the world, from teams like Bayern Munich. We had Shinhua from China. We've had Arsenal. We've had Man City. We've had representatives from some really, really big teams. Gold Coast Suns in Australia. A ton of Aussie rules teams. Oddly, British cycling. So this was my new love, my new passion, and it still is. It's just that nobody knows what's going to happen in the world of eventing.
Yeah.
Are people going to come together and sit in big rooms, 300 at a time? We don't know. So we're going to have to relook our business model, and maybe webinars is the way to go, but that's not going to give me the satisfaction of actually meeting and interacting with all of these people.
Personal.
So that was, excuse me, I needed that. So that was what was spending most of my time on. We also did an event in London, which is a business leadership summit. Very similar, but not for the sporting world, more for the business world. And that was great fun as well and went very well. And I think I managed to beat the lockdown by literally 2 weeks. So I traveled in time and we held our event in time. Fortunately, people came out and we probably lost a good 4 or 5 people who were already starting to fear the corona outbreak. So the good thing is we've got this wonderful support base, people who've been there, who've supported us over the years. And I have been doing it for a few years now. I just hope that they will come back when it's time to continue. Other than that, there's a lot more stuff. I still MC stuff. I still stand in. I still write scripts for television people. Although all of that is obviously stopped for now. I still do voiceover work. I lecture part-time at Henley Business School. Communications is usually MBA groups or management groups who come in for a management course. I enjoy that immensely. And I hope I get to do a lot more of it as well in the future. And then full-time dad.
So you're certainly keeping yourself busy. Xola, in closing, and one-word answer for here, please. Should Super Rugby resume for the season? Who's going to win this year?
Should they resume for the season? Look, it's going to sound like I'm Sharks biased already. But it would be my hope that a South African team goes out and wins, and I think they're our best hope. I think the favorites remain firmly in place. I really think the Crusaders know how to win this tournament.
Yeah.
And I think that if anyone is going to take them down, given what we've seen so far, I'd have to put my money with the Sharks.
Let's hope
That
so.
was the one-word answer.
Yeah. Even though I'm not a Sharks fan, let's hope it is a South African team. Xola, it's been awesome chatting to you. Thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your Easter and enjoy your kiddies. And we'll see you out there on TV or somewhere at an event, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, you'll see me. And I think, look, everything is also moving online. And I've been getting a lot of pressure to share my views online. So I'll probably be doing something similar, a podcast of sorts, but mainly fan-focused, I think. We'll see how that comes together. We'll see now with all the delays, it might be a good time to start, but there's just no sport to report. So yeah, interesting to see what the future holds. But thanks very much. I hope we do this again soon, though.
Absolutely, definitely. It's been great chatting.
Cheers, Adam.
Thanks, Xola. Cheers, mate. Catch us again tomorrow on Sport SA Daily Diary, where we'll be chatting to Springbok World Cup winning captain John Smit.